When I was very young, maybe about 8 or 9 years old, there was one night that still haunts me whenever I think back to it. It was a night storm like no other, one of those fierce, relentless downpours with thunder and lightning ripping across the sky every few seconds. My parents had to attend some important event downtown and weren't going to be home until very late. I was left alone in our old house for the first time ever. At the time, being alone sounded almost exciting. No one to tell me to go to bed early. No one watching what I ate. Just the whole house to myself. Before they left, they warned me thoroughly. Lock all the doors and windows. Keep the lights on downstairs till you go to bed. Don't open the door for anyone. Call us if you need anything. I promised I would be careful. The house was old, with creaky wood floors and drafty windows, but I didn't think much of it. I was so tired from the long, gloomy rainy day at school that I planned to watch some cartoons downstairs, eat some candy, and then go to bed early. The storm started to get worse as the night went on. The rain pounded like it was trying to break through every window, and the wind screamed through the trees around the house. Occasionally, a flash of lightning turned the living room into a strobe-lit nightmare, followed by thunder so loud it felt like the sky was about to split open. At some point, I felt the temperature drop drastically. I noticed cold air creeping through the cracks of the walls, and my breath came out in little clouds. I thought maybe the heater had stopped working, but I was too tired and scared to do anything about it. I crawled onto the couch, wrapped in a blanket, still determined to watch TV until I felt sleepy. Somewhere around midnight, the TV went blank, entered sleep mode or something, and that's when I realized I had fallen asleep without locking the doors or checking all the windows like Mum asked me to. A wave of guilt shook me awake, mixed with a growing unease I couldn't explain. I forced myself to get up and double-check everything. I walked through the dark house, using the flashlight on my small toy watch. The front door was locked tight, the back door too. I touched the windows, none of them cracked open or loose. I drew the blinds closed, turned on a nightlight downstairs, just like I was told. Still, the house felt unnaturally cold. Even the old wooden floor where my feet touched was icy against my skin. Something was off. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, even though I had every reason to believe I was. When I finally went upstairs to my bedroom, the storm sounded even fiercer. The rain slammed hard against the big window next to my bed, and the wind made the branches scrape and groan against the glass like giant fingers trying to get inside. It wasn't just noise, it was a symphony of menace that gripped my heart. I lay down in bed, pulling the covers close, trying not to think. But then I began to notice strange noises coming from the house itself. A creak here, a whisper of shifting wood there. The floor was carpeted, so the sounds couldn't be mine or anything moving in my room. At first, I thought it was just the old house settling in the storm, but the noise didn't match what I'd heard before on windy nights. There was something deliberate about it, a slow, dragging creak, like a door opening or something shifting just out of sight. I sat straight up in bed and stared at the closet. It was the only piece of wooden furniture in my room, and the rest of the walls were bare. The lightning flashed, flooding the room in blinding white light for a split second. That's when I saw it. The closet door was slightly ajar. I remembered closing it firmly before bed. I know I did. Something or someone had opened it. My heart hammered so loudly, I was sure it could wake the whole neighborhood. I didn't breathe or move, I just sat there frozen, eyes locked on that little gap in the door. The darkness swallowed the room again. Then came another flash of lightning, short and sharp, and the closet was dark and empty once more. I couldn't scream, couldn't stand up, couldn't even cry. I slid off the bed, trying to stay silent, and crawled to the door. Every step felt miles long. every creak like a roar. Once outside the room, I hurried downstairs and hid under the dining room table. It was my best hiding place, dark, covered, and out of sight. Only then did the tears come. Minutes later, I heard footsteps on the old wooden stairs. Not quiet, sneaky footsteps, no. These were heavy, clumsy, hopping and stumbling, as if whoever it was badly hurt or drunk. The loud thumps echoed through the room, coming closer and closer. My breath caught in my throat. I lay as still as possible, pretending to be invisible. Finally, the footsteps reached the dining room. I peeked out from behind the table's edge just enough to see 2 feet, bare feet, muddy and yellowed, ripped with cuts and scratches, like they had been dragged through thorn bushes. The legs shambled awkwardly, then a loud clatter. The person dropped something on the floor. A wrench. The sound seemed to pierce the silence. They didn't pick it up. They just stood there, unmoving, unsure. It felt like a deadly standoff, where just one wrong move would end everything. Eventually they moved on, stumbling away through the house, their footsteps fading behind the front door, which slammed shut and locked the storm away. I stayed under that table for hours, tears drying on my cheeks, trapped between fear and shock. Until the sun began to rise, I didn't dare move. The next day, I picked up the wrench and hid it so my parents wouldn't find it. I didn't tell them what happened for years. I was too scared, too ashamed, and not sure anyone would believe me. That night changed me. I developed an unshakable fear of the dark, of silence, of being alone. I slept with nightlights on for years after and never trusted the safety of a locked door the same way again. Sometimes, when the storm hits just right and the wind scratches at the windows, I remember that night and the feeling that whatever came into my house was still waiting, somewhere in the shadows, just beyond the light. I'm an only child, living with my mum and dad in a house that's a bit too big for the 3 of us. It has rooms that echo, long hallways that swallow your footsteps, and a certain emptiness that presses on you late at night. I was 15 when this happened, on a rainy Saturday somewhere in May, right before summer officially began. That night, the rain wasn't just a gentle drizzle, it was relentless. It hammered down in sheets, splattering against the windows and the pavement outside. The kind of rain that stays with you, soaking you to the bone if you step outside without warning. For most people, rain sounds are relaxing. They'll say it's peaceful, that it helps them fall asleep. Not me. I never sleep when it rains. I have a lot of weird medical things people don't always understand. Panic attacks come unexpectedly. I can faint without warning, and sometimes, even breathing feels like a chore. Worst of all, I need complete silence to sleep. No background hum, no fan, none of that white noise people swear by. So that night, the rain made it impossible for me to rest. Sometime past midnight, I gave up trying to fall asleep. I lay in bed listening to the storm. Feeling the weight of the silence, I craved slipping further and further away. After a while, I decided to get up. The usual tricks to wear myself out were no use, so I chose what had become one of my small escapes, a walk in the rain. Our neighborhood is quiet and safe, especially at night. The houses are spaced out, lawns carefully kept, and just behind us is a large public park. It's well lit by tall street lamps, and the paths are wide enough to feel secure. My parents always encouraged me to walk in the rain when I couldn't sleep. Just don't go too far, they'd say, and so I slipped on my rain jacket, quietly crept downstairs, and stepped outside without an umbrella, knowing the sound of raindrops was painful enough without holding something over my head. There was something oddly peaceful about the night. Trees swayed, the wind rustling their wet branches, leaves dripping onto the pavement like they were crying. For a long time, I just walked, feeling the cold rain soak my jacket and run down my face. After about 20 minutes, I started feeling tired. The cold had a way of wearing me out, making my muscles ache, but also lulling my mind into a place just outside exhaustion. Thinking I'd be able to sleep if I got back home soon, I turned and began to cut through the park toward the street. That's when I noticed it. A long, black shape lying flat in the middle of the street. At first, I hoped it was a discarded plastic bag or some trash someone had dumped. But as I got closer, it became obvious it was a person. Face down, completely still, I froze, my stomach twisted. My mind raced to find a reason. Had this person been hit by a car? Were they hurt badly? Or worse, every instinct screamed at me to keep walking, to ignore and get home safely. But my parents had always taught me to help when I could, so, shaking, I stepped toward them. The man was wearing black pants and a dark plaid shirt soaked by the rain. Not the kind of clothes anyone sensibly wears during heavy downpours, which only made the situation stranger. I didn't know what else to think. As I approached, a sudden, unexplainable chill ran through me. It felt like the rain itself shifted 1 second lukewarm, the next piercing ice cold. My breath caught. Without warning, a sound shattered the night behind me, a long primal screech. It wasn't a scream or animal howl I'd ever heard before. It was somewhere between a howl and a wail, raw, untortured, and even like something hurt or desperate. I spun around, heart hammering in my chest. The trees bordering the park stood silent and dark, no visible source for the chilling cry. It felt as if the forest itself was screaming. Turning back to the man, my growing terror exploded. The figure was no longer lying on the wet pavement. He was sitting upright, perfectly still, staring directly at me. The streetlights cast eerie shadows across his soaked face, but I saw what I could only describe as a twisted smile spread across his lips, a grin that didn't belong to a sane person. My vision blurred, the world tilting, while the pounding rain seemed to grow louder than ever. Before I could move, he sprang up, knife in hand, a kitchen knife, dull but deadly sharp from how it caught the streetlight's glow. That moment I understood true fear. I turned and ran. The wet grass and muddy earth slowed me down, but I was faster on adrenaline alone. "I'll kill you," the man shouted behind me, voice ragged and unhinged. I didn't even glance back. I refused to lead him to my house. So I darted toward the thickest part of the park, the same dark trees that had screamed earlier. Branches tore at my rain jacket. Roots threatened to trip me, but I didn't stop. Each breath was sharp fire in my lungs. Eventually, I collapsed behind a thick tree trunk, gasping, my whole body trembling. I looked behind me. No sign of my pursuer. None of the shadows stirred, yet I couldn't move. 20 terrifying minutes passed, rain soaking into me, every crack of thunder making me jump. When I finally dared to get up, I chose a long, winding path home, moving through quiet streets and back alleys, anything to avoid walking the same way. I made it back, finally exhausted, soaked, heart still racing. I never told my parents exactly what happened. How could I explain the scream in the woods, the sudden attack, the demonic smile? There was no logic, no reason, only the suffocating instinct to survive. Years later, I'm still haunted by that night, by the inexplicable howl and the man who appeared from nowhere, driven by some madness too deep to understand. Sometimes, after a storm, when the skies darken and the wind whispers through the trees, I can't help but wonder if he's still out there, waiting for someone lonely enough to be alone in the rain. I've always been drawn to the wild, the places where the buzz of the city fades into nothing but the whisper of trees and the steady rush of rivers. I'm 29 now, and camping real deep into the woods. Camping is my way of clearing my head when everything feels too heavy. Not crowded campgrounds or noisy parks. I mean true nowhere spots, miles from anyone. A few months ago, after a brutal breakup, I needed that escape more than ever. So I packed my truck with bare essentials and headed for a quiet riverside spot I'd found once before. Nothing official, just a bend in the river reachable by a dirt road disappearing into emptiness. Pulling off the main road, the first thing that hit me was two trucks parked near the trailhead. One gray, one white, no people in sight. But just knowing they were there messed with my sense of solitude. I sat in the cab a moment, fighting a flurry of doubt. I hadn't driven all this way to deal with strangers. But the river was long, and the spot I wanted was further down, hidden by thick trees. I told myself they'd probably be far away. I hiked maybe 15 minutes downriver and spotted two men fishing. They looked every bit the cliché outdoorsman, rugged, a bit rough around the edges, heavy boots, thick beards, except something was off as I neared. One swiftly covered a pile of cans with his jacket and offered a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Awkward, forced. I'm just shooting cans, didn't mean to freak you out, he said quickly, like he was rehearsed. I nodded, said nothing, and kept walking. But the words echoed in my mind with an unsettling tone. It wasn't what he said, it was how too eager to reassure, like hiding something. I pushed the feeling down, blamed it on rural awkwardness. I found a narrow bend where thick trees veiled the trail, and set up my tent, determined to carve a piece of privacy. A soft rain began, so I zipped up my jacket and lost myself in a book, the river's murmur and drizzle a comforting lull. Later, drawn by a restless energy, I wandered to the rocky river's edge. Then I saw him, the man who spoke to me earlier, alone on the opposite bank. He spotted me, waved. I hesitated, then waved back. A few words passed over the water, and I told him my name, Anisha, against my better judgment. Seconds passed. Then, to my horror, he produced something from his jacket, a disposable camera. Its plastic casing scratched and snapped my picture from across the river before turning and walking away like nothing happened. Creeped out doesn't begin to cover it. Back at camp, night darkened the woods, and though I crawled into my tent, sleep refused me. Memories of the breakup churned endlessly, but soon, I noticed a new sound. Footsteps, uneven, careful, circling my campsite. At first I told myself it was animals or the rain playing tricks on my ears, but the sound grew clearer, deliberate. My heart sunk. I knew who it was. I'm not foolish or unprepared. My handgun was always close, tucked by my sleeping bag. I grasped it, zipped the tent open, and stepped into the cold rain, flashlight clicking on. There he was, half hidden behind a tree, not a smile, no scowl, just a blank, empty look that chilled me deeper than the night. In his left hand gleamed a small axe, the blade catching glints of streetlight and moonlight. I froze for a moment, thoughts racing, how far I was, how no one would hear me if I screamed. Then I raised the gun, aimed, and forced my voice steady. Leave now or I'll kill you. He blinked slowly, unmoved, mumbled something about his friend Ivan having told him not to come after me, but that he had to take care of Ivan. I didn't wait for explanation. Bang, the shot rang out, tearing through the trees above his head. He staggered, caught off guard. My confidence steadied. I ordered him again, drop the axe. He complied, and relief crashed over me like a wave, but I wasn't safe yet. I told him to remove his shoes, make it harder to follow. I searched him for other weapons, found none. Then I made him gather my gear, but only into the open where I could watch. I packed fast, kept the axe in my bag, threw his shoes far into the darkness, and sent him walking the other way. I didn't dare lower the light, didn't stop until I was on the dirt road, speeding toward my truck. The trucks were still there, but I didn't look. I locked the doors and raced away, heart pounding like thunder in my chest. I called the police as soon as I had signal and reported everything, trying to describe my spot as best I could. Months later, part of me still can't shake the last thing he said, the taking care of his friend Ivan. What that means haunts me more than the night itself. I don't know what monsters lurk in those woods, but I'm thankful I was armed. That night could have ended differently.